All right, hello everybody and good morning. I hope you all can hear me okay. Feel free to write into the chat feature if you have any technical difficulties. My name is Evan Bask. I am the Programs and Events Manager at the Idaho Nonprofit Center. Thanks for joining us all today. Just a few housekeeping notes. One, this session is recorded and I will email you guys the link to that recording afterwards if you would like to watch. Feel free to do so. And I'd also love for you guys to utilize the chat feature. If you guys have any questions, any comments, any additions you would like me to ask Tom, I'm happy to do that. If you guys feel free to write into that chat feature and we can get any of your questions addressed. So today's session is on challenges facing you and your board. We have my good friend Tom here that he is a wealth of knowledge and I know you guys are gonna learn a lot from him. So with that, I'll get out of the way and turn it over to Tom.
Well, thank you, Evan, and good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for joining the call. And Evan, I want to give a shout out to you for all the work you and the center are doing to provide information and resources to everybody in Idaho and borders beyond. It's a great asset, and I know everyone is thankful. So when everybody on the call, when you have a moment, send a quick little thank you to Evan and the center for all the work they're doing. A good way to start this off. I want to quickly see, hey, Evan, oh gosh, can you believe it? Let's see, Evan, we're having a little, maybe I'll have to do it here. Okay, my advance button wasn't working on my pad. All right, so I just want to say to everybody, if you haven't read the little bio, I've built four nonprofits and 3 foundations. And I think being right now sitting on 6 boards, that you'll be able to glean a couple of nuggets of information from that experience and even the work I'm doing with my nonprofits now. So I hope to share that. But I do want everybody to know, if you go to my website, you can sign up at the bottom to receive my blog, and I'll give you a $500 coupon for your next board retreat or strategic planning session or any fundraising service. And all my books are at cost right now, and 100% of that money goes to nonprofits. There you have it. Let's jump right in. Hey, you want to make a difference. You have noble intentions and a worthy mission, and I give you all a big kudos and a shout out for that. But right now, I know that a number of you are facing some serious concerns and worries, and a lot of people are calling me feeling really overwhelmed, and I know Evan is feeling the same. But the perspective I want you to take today is, how are you embracing this change? Is it something that you're working with your team to think about how can we adapt and overcome, or right now are you still feeling like you're drowning in it? Because it's just right now we're kind of at the peak of this. There's a lot of organizations that I'm talking with on a regular basis who are saying right now is kind of the peak of where they're really feeling the stress of their organization trying to figure things out. So today my hope is that we can work through some of these issues you're facing, and the format will be such as this. We're going to talk about some of the things that your board should be doing and what challenges they're facing, and then we'll do some Q&A there, and then we're going to move on to staff and also fundraising challenges. And all, like I said, after each of these little sections, we'll take a couple of questions, and at the very end we can pile them on in detail then. All right, what should your board be doing at this time? That's a big question. A lot of people are having struggles with this. Because so many boards typically are under-engaged or disengaged, or just a percentage of them are highly engaged. One of the things, if you're a board member on this call, I want to encourage you, this is a great time to lead and act and raise your hand and be a do something, get it done, I'm in, how can we help board? But at the same time, this is the time to let your ED run the show. It's important to listen and ask probing questions, provide feedback, but this is not the time to meddle or micromanage. One of the biggest mistakes I find right now that board members are making is they're saying, what should we do to make change and help the organization? Not, I'm saying, and what should we be doing in terms of actually us propelling our agenda to make change? And that is a position that's going to really create some unsettling nerves for the executive director and the staff. So one of the most important things that the board can be doing right now is support the staff and not control them. If there is one particular thing that they can be doing, is providing financial aid to the staff in terms of either loans for bills and mortgages or paid sick leave, especially addressing the needs of their staff's family and their children, and all these things, because this is what's really going on. And we know this, is that when the staff goes home right now, most of them are working from home. A large percentage are. I know some that are still going in, that they are struggling with their own kids being back, college children being back home, spouses that are not employed at the time. But one of the things that I think that you could really do, if you're a board member on this call, is making sure that you're providing financial resources for mental health services. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of staff are unwilling to share how they're feeling, the depression or being overwhelmed, the challenges at home. And this is a great opportunity for the board to step up and say, we're going to make sure that our staff is taken care of, and ask what those needs are from the executive director and providing those financial resources to support that. A couple of other things that a board should be doing at this time is, one is ensuring workplace safety. Everybody already knows this. I'm not going to talk about that much because it's already in play. Number two is, having regular virtual meetings, which I'm sure most of your boards are. If they're not, maybe encourage them to have virtual meetings. But the most important aspect of having the meeting is including staff. No one knows the organization better than staff, the frontline workers, and it's really important that your key staff, the development director, the program director, finance director, all these people are on the call. What can happen is sometimes if just the executive director is on the call with the board, that they're not really getting a true complete picture from the front lines. And if there's any time, it's right now where to give a voice to the line staff and to key staff members to really understand what's going on programmatically and all the functional areas of the organization, but how are they feeling? And one of the things that I think that can really show staff that you care and that you're in touch with what's going on in their lives is doing some small things for staff, showing appreciation. You can do this by making a phone call, sending a card, sending a gift certificate to a local restaurant. People want to be valued and appreciated, not for just what they do, but for who they are. And this is a great opportunity for the board to step up and show how much they care about the work and sacrifices the staff is making at this time. And one of the things that board members can do is really start informing donors and the community. This is a great chance for the board members to raise their hand and say, hey, this is what I can do and how I can help. Sometimes the executive director is the point person for the media, but if your board chair or a board member really understands the programming and is totally dialed in on all aspects of each of the functional areas in the organization and can easily and quickly and articulately talk about the organization, this can be a great role for a board member or the board chair. But if you do this, make sure that the messaging is consistent. It's very easy to get stuck and have different types of messages coming from different people, and you certainly don't want to have that happen in the newspaper or in any medium. I think one of the simplest things that the board can do, and I see this happen in a number of my organizations right now, is that the staff and the executive are saying, hey, we need support. We're running a food relief organization, and we need to get companies and people and churches and business involved into donating food or helping pack food boxes and things of that nature. And this is a wonderful way for people to get involved, and they can do it in a safe manner. So that is a couple of things that I think that might help quickly and easily to propel the work that you're doing, but provide safety and getting the board engaged and giving them an opportunity. Do we have any questions out there right now about anything that you're facing and challenges you're facing regarding your board? Evan, do you have any comments?
It looks like no one's writing in yet. Feel free to use that chat feature.
All right, well, let's just move on then. So let's go to the next big area about concerns for the organization, and that's like what's going on with staff right now and what are the challenges you're facing. And I think the biggest thing that I hear when I talk to my clients or my organizations that I built and the foundation I'm running right now, that they're saying, hey, we have an incredible amount of stress, the staff and the board, and we're not sure what to do or where to go, and people are feeling overwhelmed. And I think the biggest piece of advice that I can provide, and I've seen work, is really for the executive director more than anybody else to step up and set the tone and say, hey, we are experiencing change, but that does not necessarily mean that's a bad thing. Let's start looking at the glass half full, not half empty, and start thinking about how can we adapt and overcome and reset from what we're doing. Yeah, we have to work from home, or yeah, our beneficiaries are undergoing changes, or we have to reconsider and move and postpone our fundraising efforts. These are happening to everybody. You're not in this alone. And one of the things I just read this morning, by the way, you can look this up. There was a Gallup article about how to manage, how to lead in terms of crisis. And the 4 things that came out were building trust and showing compassion for your staff and making sure that things at the organization feel stable and providing hope. And I think instead of going into each of those areas, I think you should just write down those 4 words and ask yourself when you have time is, what does that mean to you, and how can you manifest these attributes into your organization and into the culture of the organization as you manage all these different changes that are happening at light speed. I think one of the things that you can do is really avoiding overwhelming the staff. What's going on with so many organizations right now is they have a million to-dos, whether it's moving staff at home, dealing with the bank. It's really even hard to get a hold of someone at the bank right now. I mean, people are trying to get SBA loans. There's a lot going on. And a lot of this work is now going way beyond the typical job description. And some people are feeling overwhelmed. And you have to take in consideration the work is not only overwhelming them, but what's going on at home is also overwhelming them. And that is something to take into consideration as well. And so what are some of the things that you can do as an executive director to make sure that the staff can absorb some of this increased capacity? And one of the simplest things is to set an easy pace. Everything's going to get done. We are going to get through this, whether it's 30 days or 60 days or 3 months or 4 months. It's all going to be okay in the end. But right now, it doesn't feel like that. And it's important as an executive director to be calm and even find some time to inject some humor. Even if you just send out a funny e-card, find some organizations are doing that just to create a laugh for the day, or send out a joke or something to keep things lighthearted. A couple of other things. These are kind of bigger picture things. If you are experiencing a lot of stress, or you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're just wondering how to manage through this crisis, one of the biggest things that you can do, and one of the things that I'm making the 2 foundations that I'm consulting with right now, we're working on how do we filter out all the noise? How do we simplify things? What's really important in the next 90 days? And my encouragement to you is just write a simple list and say to yourself, what is absolutely most important right now for us to do or us to accomplish in the next 90 days? Prioritize that list and then have a plan to execute it. This will give you some direction. It's kind of like a very short-term strategic plan approach, and it won't take a lot of time. And then in your whatever spare time you have, is start thinking about how you plan to resume normal operations. This is already in some organizations. I'm working with an organization right now in North Dakota where they don't have a lot of virus, and they are already working on their recovery plan. And it's something to start thinking about as an executive, is what should we be doing? How should we be doing? What will be different? And you don't have to work it out. Don't create a lot of stress, but you don't want to get blindsided either. But that would be my suggestion. And I think that it's working well for the organizations that I've talked with. And last, I think it's a great opportunity because you might be running an organization that's not directly impacted by this. And what I mean by that is, let's say if you're a hunger relief organization or a women's resource center or a shelter, you might be really off the charts in feeling the demand of what's happening in your community and the demand on your services. And so that can be a lot of pressure. Other organizations, maybe you work with beneficiaries that come in from out of town, and because those events have been canceled, maybe you have camps of some type, you have, let's say, not that you have a bunch of free time, but you might have time, opportunity, and capacity to not only work on your organization, but maybe volunteer to help other nonprofits. There's an organization here in Blaine County that has they offer camps to wounded veterans, and they're actually offering their services to deliver food to seniors in the Valley. So that's something to consider as well. Okay, do we have some questions here? Looks like we have one question. How do you get your board engaged? Well, that's a really good question. What I would do now, this is a good question because it has to do grounded in what your relationship is with the board. If you have a healthy relationship with your board, getting them engaged is rather easy because you can let them know what opportunities exist and say, based on their time and availability and resources, and then work to engage them. That's the simple. The second is where I think you're going is, what happens if I have an under-engaged board or a disengaged board? Well, unfortunately at this time, force the board to get engaged in the organization, in the work of the organization. This might not be a good time. A lot has to depend on what your relationship with them is. But what you could do is let them know, as I said on earlier slides, is saying, okay, we need to pack more food boxes. This is the hours, we're short on volunteers. Here's an immediate opportunity that'll have big impact on what we're doing. Who would like to join? Here's the time, sign up, that kind of thing. So if you can be specific. If you have a more detailed question to your general question, I would be happy to answer that. So maybe you can write us with something that you're finding why your board is under-engaged. So send that to me, please. Let's move on to fundraising, and then we'll wrap up with some questions. One of the biggest fundraising challenges everybody's facing next level, right? So everybody's competing. They're trying to touch their donors as quickly as they can. Some people are putting online events. You know, people are really, truly freaking out because their one gala has been postponed and they can't keep up with the work because their beneficiaries need help, but they're trying to work from home. Here, and what I'm seeing and working more than anything else is that you just try not to do everything. You can't do everything. You really are facing a capacity constraint time here. And so try to do a couple of things and do them really, really well. And I'm going to give you some tactics on what I know will be successful. So I'm really thankful that you joined this call, because if you want to start raising some money, this is going to help you do that. This is the time to start thinking about stewardship. You know, we'll talk about if you have to be raising money now, but this is a great opportunity to spend more time in stewardship. Very few organizations spend a lot of time in stewardship. They write a thank you letter or they do some recognition, but they're not spending a lot of time actually stewarding their donors. And this is a perfect opportunity. What you want to be doing now is, just providing regular messages to your donors about what's going on and letting them know that, hey, we are still in business. We love what we're doing. We're passionate about it. We're going to get back on track. Everything's going to be fine. And you know what? We can't do this without your help. It's because of you that we're able to help hungry people or women who've been abused or pets that are in shelters. I mean, you want the donors to let the donors know that you're excited about the future and the impact, and that you want them to come alongside you as they always have, because we are going to get through this. However, when you do communicate with them, the number one thing to think about is empathizing with their position. You have to realize that especially your major donors, or everybody who has a 401k or money in the stock market, their financial wealth on paper is down anywhere from 10 to 30%. And so they're feeling the pinch. Plus, they have family members who they're thinking about, maybe grandparents who might be at risk. And also the impact that this is having on their families by having children back home and their own worries. And so these things are real. And so by acknowledging that on either in a letter or on a phone call, and just be caring about their situation, not like keeping it all about you, will go a long way to building your brand with your donors. And the way to do that is writing these simple handwritten letters. Buy some nice cards, and even online, and write something nice that you know about them and make it personal. What do you know about their family and their interest and what might be going on with them right now, where they are? Maybe they have a second home, and are they there, or are they in their primary home? Just making conversation with them and thanking them for being supportive and letting them know that we're going to get through this together and that we're going to continue with the amazing impact that we have shown over the years, that kind of thing. If you are going to send an email, please, if you take one thing away from this webinar, please build small, brief emails. So many people are writing these long emails in small font. You have to remember that 85% of all money that comes to nonprofits is coming from people who are 65 and older. So you want to use a larger font style with big blocks, with headers, and keep it simple. We're talking like 2 paragraphs, something super short so people will read it. Because what good is it if you're trying to communicate something to your donors and they're not reading it? And that goes for videos too. 1.5 minutes max. If you're going to say something about what's going on to inform your donors, this is the way to do it. Short videos, something simple and quick. And the number one thing I think that you can be doing is calling your major donors. You have to remember it takes 200 $100 gifts to equal one $20,000 gift. Pick up the phone, call your major donors, and if you don't have that many donors, if you only have 300 or 400 donors, you have plenty of time, or try to make the time to make short calls to these people. Yes, they're busy. Yes, they're at home, but letting them know, not to ask for money, but just to say, hey, we just wanted to call you to tell you what's going on here. And that will go a long way to having them feel like they're connected with the organization. You made it personal. And I can assure you, nothing will make a donor feel more attached than an easy, simple, quick phone call that talks about the status of what's going on, letting them know that your staff is taken care of, and that you're all excited to move forward and get beyond this so you can get back to making great impact. And of course, if you're working directly with beneficiaries, kids with disabilities, or you're helping women who've been abused, or whatever it might be, to share that you are taking care of your beneficiaries. And this number 2 here is only ask money now if you need it. This is where I see so many organizations making ginormous mistakes. They're out there feeling that they're going to lose money, and so they're trying to race around and do activities to raise money that they just aren't good at. I mean, if you haven't already held an online giving campaign, doing one now and trying to learn all the technology and write all the copy, spending that dozens and dozens and dozens of hours doing something like that, only to see that it's going to be a flop. I cannot tell you how many organizations are telling me that their online giving campaign that they put together because they postponed their gala has been a ginormous flop. And so if you don't have to be asking for money right now, don't do it. Spend the time doing donor stewardship. But if you have to ask for money, this is a great time to be super specific. Think in terms of sponsorship. Let me give you an example. If you're providing hunger relief, then you could have something like a sponsorship of $1,000 buys 10 food boxes, $100 each. That helps 10 families of a family of 4 for a week, provides food for a week. Those are the kinds of sponsorship opportunities that are really, really working. So if you have a program or you have an opportunity to fund what you're doing and helping your beneficiaries through kind of some sponsorship, or if there's items you need, whether it could be Clorox bleach or something that you need for your programs, this is a great time to put that out to your donors. And if you have a couple of major donors who may have already taken a proactive approach and called you, you might want to try to leverage their gift. So if someone said, hey, I would love to give you $20,000 to help with the work that you're doing, you can use that as a matching opportunity and also applying an urgency tactic and try to raise that same amount of money in maybe a week or two. So you would put together saying, maybe you're trying to get 4 or 5 gifts of $2,500 or $5,000 with your other major donors to match a $20,000 gift. Those kinds of things work really, really well right now. And another thing that's working exceptionally well is the tactic of asking major donors for 0 interest loans and emergency relief gifts to help the organization. People are coming out of the woodwork to support those kind of programs. So if you want, that would be a tactic I would put in play if you have a strong donor pool of major donors. Let's come back to this idea of postponing events. I really cannot stress it enough, and why I'm going to say it again. Do not do an online event right now unless it's imperative. It's really, really best to focus on funding that you can get right now or you need right now, whether it's emergency relief funding or funding for mental health services for your staff or paying their bills or something of that nature. That is what's going to be working.
Tom, are you still there? I think my audio is cut out. I'm not sure if anyone else is experiencing that issue.
For the emergency relief disaster fund. And that could be a great source to get $20,000 or $30,000 or more, depending on your payroll size. But those 3 things are really wonderful opportunities to get more money for the organization. And last, I think one of the things that you might be feeling or hearing already is people calling you and saying, hey, how can we help? What can we do? And this is a wonderful opportunity to engage the community in the work of your organization. And one of the things that you could do is host a simple online town hall meeting, letting people know what's going on in the organization. How are you handling this crisis? What are you doing for the beneficiaries? What are you going to be doing about your gala that you had to cancel? Those kinds of things, and do a little Q&A session. This is a successful tactic that a number of organizations are doing, and I would suggest it if you have the ability and the technical know-how. The last thing is saying, hey, some people just want to help. They're calling up or writing you and saying, what can we do? And maybe there are things you can do depending on the kind of programming you have. Maybe they can run errands or make phone calls for you or pick up or deliver food or even pray for you. These are some things that you can communicate to the volunteers who are reaching out to you instead of just saying, hey, you know, we got it, it's all covered. Try to find a couple of ways. What are some things that your volunteers could do to help the organization while keeping it safe? And that would be a wonderful way for you to communicate and stay connected with your community. I do want to let you know that, hey, why do people continue to give? And this is a concept I hope you walk away with. People continue to give to your organization because they want to know that their donation made to express these things in a way that really makes the donor feel connected. And so when you're making your calls and when you're sending out your emails or the videos, is really, again, acknowledge people about how their gift has made a difference. Not what is going on with you necessarily, but that we couldn't be doing what we're doing without you. That it's really from a donor's perspective. And letting them know that you truly value and appreciate them, that this is a tough time for them, and that you are thankful for all that they've done to help you get to where you are, and that you are thankful for the opportunities that they can help you get to where you want to go. And the concept about this that you can put into your mind is this concept of providing concierge service. And no matter what you're doing in this next few months, as you go through this crisis, is saying, how can we provide concierge level service? How can we go above and beyond to make the experience with our donors unexpectedly pleasurable, with the media unexpectedly pleasurable, with our volunteers unexpectedly pleasurable? What are we doing to set ourselves apart? Because if we make that experience with people unexpectedly pleasurable, and we go above and beyond and write little letters and do the small things that separate us from the competition, you will make lasting impressions, and you will create loyal donors, and you'll raise a lot more money. You have to remember that during this time, a lot of organizations are really struggling, and they're not spending the time in the areas that will have the long-term impact. Like I said, they're spending hundreds of hours putting on these online fundraising campaigns that are a lot of them are going nowhere and raising very little money and not having much impact, versus doing the small little things like writing cards or making phone calls. Those little things are going to go a lot further to making a great impact on your donors than the things that you're trying to do in the background and just asking for money. So pick up the phone, get some letters, written letters, and make the donor feel unexpectedly pleasurable by doing some small things. Those in the end will be what sets you apart and helps you raise money and sets your organization up with a strong brand as you pull through this crisis. So remember, your brand matters during this time. Remember, a brand is really the images and impressions and ideas that are formed and held in a person's mind. And this is a great time for you to form some great impressions on your donor and in the community that you really are managing this well. Your staff is handling this and feeling good, those kinds of things, and that the donors feel valued and appreciated. Get your board dialed into doing work. If you're a board member on this call, I urge you to say, hey, this is the time to act and get involved without meddling. What can we do to help? How can we ask the smart questions about, should we pivot? What should we be doing? How should we be doing it? But from the program perspective, from the executive director's perspective, and not trying to push an agenda that you think is right for the organization. And both the executive director and the board, the number one thing in their mind as well is thinking is, how can we make sure that our staff is feeling secure and happy? Do they have what they need at home as much as what they have at work to feel secure and happy, to build trust and show compassion to them? Those are important. things that'll make the staff, because the last thing you need now is for staff to feel like they're not valued or appreciated because they are feeling the stress at home and they are feeling overwhelmed with everything. So it's your job as an executive director or a key staff or supervisor to work to keep the stress to a minimum. The people are looking to you to set the tone. And one of the things that you can do to set a great tone and build a healthy culture is just to simplify things. It seems like it's quite chaotic right now, but this is really a good time to just simplify and say what is most important. Let's prioritize, and we can move things forward. And lastly, I've said it a bunch of times, I'm going to say it again, is make sure that you're fundraising wisely. You only have so much time in the day. Don't try to do everything. Do a couple of things and do it really, really well. Steward your donors. Write letters, make phone calls. If you have to raise money or you need money, create sponsorships or wish lists. Keep it simple. Focus on what's most important and just take some deep breaths. It's all going to work out in the end. We're going to get through this. I'm really grateful that you joined the call, and I'm open to some questions. I really want to answer your specific questions. And there we have it. So thank you so much. Evan, what do you have to say?
That's awesome. Yes, thank you, Tom. So it looks like, did we get to Travis's second question here?
Any suggestions for fundraising later? Could you, yeah, I think that's a great question. It's a little vague. I have a whole book on that. If you want to go to my website for $6, you're welcome. I would love to say, hey, so is there, you have a little bit more specific question? I think that, like, in the most general sense, the question was, any suggestions for fundraising later? Yeah, and I think once the crisis is over, is try to have some kind of an event or something. I mean, depending, this is a very open question right here, because if you have a gala or you have a salon event, I would really make it into something fun and upbeat. And that would be one. Two, I am a huge fan, because more than 80% of money comes to nonprofits through individuals, and 80% of that comes from face-to-face giving. So that means more than 65% of all giving that comes to nonprofits comes from people asking face-to-face. So the one tactic that I would say more than anything else, once we get through this, is work to meet with your donors face-to-face, have some sponsorship opportunities, do some matching, do a competitive tactic, combine that with a matching tactic, have a little urgency in there, and meet with your donors and say, hey, because maybe you have lost some income during this time, you might have this recovery campaign or something of that nature, and say you want to raise $100,000 and you already have a $20,000 gift, and meet with those donors so you can make the case face-to-face. 70% of people will say yes to your ask if you ask them in a face-to-face setting. If they have any close connection to the organization, meaning they volunteer, that will go up to 90%. So the upshot is, hey, what are you going to do when the crisis is over? The number one thing you can do is set up meetings with your donors, especially your major donors, and ask for gifts in face-to-face settings with a strong kind of sponsorship opportunity. That is your winning ticket. I think, okay, a follow-up question is kind of, you said most of our donors are being greatly affected by this. And I think that, you're not sure. You're making an assumption that people might not be as gracious as they used to be. And I have already found that in some situations, people are being more gracious, especially for, the hunger. I founded the Hunger Coalition here in Blaine County, and people are coming out of the woodwork. They're raising a lot of money. So I think that you might be surprised at people's willingness, or in some sense unwillingness, to give. I think you're going to find that people will give, and a lot of it has to do with how you steward donors during this time and set yourself up for a successful ask. Even, some people have lost their jobs and lost their money, but it lost some money on paper in the stock market. But you shouldn't assume that people will not give because of their current financial status. Though, yes, some people give out of their income. Yes, a big percentage of people do. But that does not mean that if you make a strong case and they understand and they are been well stewarded, that they won't support your organization. And I think you just might be surprised. Evan, any other questions?
Doesn't look like it. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for your time. We really appreciate your knowledge you have to share with us this afternoon. So thank you all for those joining online to take the time with us as well. Of course, feel free to visit Tom's website for any further information. But we thank you all for joining us. And I will follow up with you guys with the recording. And feel free to follow our website, which is idahononprofits.org. We have a large pool of COVID-19 resource page that includes different webinars, different articles, etc. We're constantly updating that, so feel free to keep an eye on that. But thank you all, and I hope you guys stay happy and healthy.
Thanks, Evan.